Alright, it's your boy Spankdog, aka Puffinstein at YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You already know. Tick the notification bell so you know when I go live and when I post videos. BC Spankdog at Instagram and Robert Lopez at Facebook. Alright guys, so it's looking like Putin is hurting right now. You know, I try to be politically correct, as you can see from that audio avatar. From what the news has reported about Putin, it's very, very bad. I mean, horrible. There's other words to describe it, but I'll refrain. And we're gonna get into a video that pretty much breaks down a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. So I'm gonna get straight into it.
Trump dropped the hammer on Russia, and it was so subtle that many people didn't even catch it. But Putin and his government was very quick to recognize the warnings from his comment, because everyone from the top of the Russian government quickly came out and said what Trump is saying, it's not gonna fly, because that would mean Russia would be kicked out of Ukraine. So let me first show you the comments that Trump made, and then we'll break it down why Russia and even China is freaking out about the demands Trump is making from Ukraine. You
see the way Putin looks in that picture? That's not for no reason. It's real from what the news reports.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee.
Putin is, well, from what the news reports, he's a horrible person, beyond horrible. In my opinion, our president isn't as bad as Putin, but he's up there.
We're handing him money hand over fist. We're giving him equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal. They should really be paying much more than us. But let's say equal to us. And they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
Russia was very quick to come out and denounce this idea. They had Putin, Lavrov, Medvedev. They even forced the jet.
I mean, some people are aware of how disgusting things get when there's a war, but the Geneva Convention, there's rules of engagement, and the rules of engagement have not been followed by Russia. What he's done is criminal. Business basics. Let me hit him with the thumbs up.
And make a statement saying this idea is not going to fly. It's not going to work. Russia is never going to let this happen. And they have a very good reason for denouncing it and opposing this so heavily. So let's dig a little deeper in this video. Figure out exactly why this idea is freaking out everyone in the Russian regime.
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead. It's like I'm dying to tell you how horrible a person Putin is. For a natural resource that's going to become precious in the future, he's sacrificing 1,000 to 2,000 men a day. There's 365 days in the year. Let's just say 1,000. So even if we just say 1,000, that's 365,000 dead in 1 year. And it's reportedly over a precious natural resource that isn't even precious as it's gonna be in the future, supposedly.
Ukraine is very rich in natural resources. In fact, it's considered one of the richest countries in natural resources in Europe and likely in the world. These resources include coal, metals, natural gas, oil, and what Trump just said, rare metals. Now, of course, it's under the ground, so it's hard to get an exact value, but expert estimates put the value of resources under the ground anywhere between $20 to $26 trillion. That's trillion with the T.
There's mines in the Ukraine, and that's what this whole thing was over. Putin wanted to control Kiev because that's where a lot of the coal is, and maybe other natural resources. So he sacrificed as many men as he could.
Expert estimates put the value of resources under the ground anywhere between 20 to 26 trillion.
All right, 20 to 26 trillion dollars. That's why he's throwing men into the wind like it's it's nothing. He probably wouldn't care if 1 million people died if he could get his hands on that 26 trillion. Trump wants to come in and help the Ukraine, but in exchange for some of them natural resources.
That's trillion with the T. Now, guess where most of these resources are? On the east, the same side that Russia has been fighting so hard to take over. Now, after all, we shouldn't expect any better from a
Told you.
country that late Senator John McCain called it a gas station run by a mafia that's masquerading as a country. Now, we have called this out before. This special military operation that Putin launched, it's not about
The
denazifying
world is
Ukraine, as you guys
crazy.
know. It's also not about protecting the Russian.
It's not just the there's good countries and good people. There's even governments that are decent or beyond. And I'm not gonna start calling out every country that does slimy stuff. But there's a lot of countries. I wouldn't even know which countries are doing a decent job and which ones are slimy. But in the now world news, not only is it Putin being greedy, it's also him being murderous.
Russian-speaking population in Ukraine. Because if he really wanted to protect those people who spoke Russians, he wouldn't be raining down bombs, shells, and gunfire in the same area where these Russian-speaking people lived. If it was about protecting them, he would treat them better. In fact, it was just good old imperialism trying to take over something that's valuable that another country owns. And doesn't matter the cost, doesn't matter the lives that are lost, as long as Putin and his cronies get rich. Here's a clip from our.
I hope you guys like my audio avatar. I'll be running for president in the future one day. So, but to be honest with you, I just, the avatar picture of me looking like a politician, that's just to, lighten it up a little, because this is beyond sad what he's doing.
Our podcast, Chaos and Peace, where Jason J. Smart explains this in detail.
Throughout this war, we see that Russia has had one thing that it does all the time, and that's to get as many natural resources as possible. Now, it's not limited to Ukraine. Russia does exactly the same thing in Africa, for instance. But in the case of Ukraine, it's pretty stark. So in 2022, when the invasion began, and you look at it on a map, and you look on a map at the same time, where are Ukraine's most important natural resources? There's an overlap. And why there's an overlap is Russia wished to take control of Ukraine's natural resources.
I mean, they're outright telling you that this war was over resources. Not only that Putin attacked to get his hands on the resources. Not only was he killing innocent women and children in Ukraine, he was also sending his troops to the slaughterhouse, no problem, to get his hands on the 26 trillion in natural resources that they just spoke about. And, if I got it correct, they were fighting heavy over Kiev. Well, I have a feeling that's where the natural resources are, or close to.
Hoping that without that, Ukraine would be broken. But also, it allowed Russia to corner the market with various goods. Russia was doing all it could to mop those up and take control of those. And an example that we see even today in Pokrovsk, Ukraine, the town in the east, which Russia has been losing up to 1,000 soldiers per day to take.
For 26 trillion, he was getting Kim Jong-un to give him North Korean soldiers, and then Putin was just throwing them out into the field to shoot blindly, and they were fighting against modern warfare, and they have footage of Russian soldiers waving their guns at drones. I've always, if you watch my channel, I talk about how money's the root of all evil. Now, those natural resources, you just heard them say it, equal $26 trillion, $20 to $26 trillion in money, in cash. Do you see what money does to people? He's sending people to the slaughterhouse like it's nothing. And it's all because he wants control of that $26 trillion in natural resources by Kiev.
One might ask, why are they fighting so hard for a town that doesn't have that much strategic value militarily? The answer is simple. Of course, Ukraine is the largest coal mine in the country, and it's very important to have that coal in order to produce steel, which used to be a third of all of Ukraine's exports.
Natural.
Now, by taking that mine, and let's imagine it's in Russian hands, it means Ukraine's coal production per year would drop from about 7 million metric tons to about 2.5 or 3 million metric tons. Russia, by comparison, has about 12 million metric tons per year of production. Now, steel is one of the very few industries that the European Union has not really been dying to put a lot of sanctions on. And the reason is that Europe buys a lot of steel from Russia. So if Russia is able to make Ukraine no longer competitive, is if Ukraine doesn't have enough coal, they would have to import coal. And if it imports the coal, the steel then becomes too expensive to sell in the market. But by cornering the market, by making sure that it's not possible for Ukraine to compete, it allows Russia to compete within Europe. And that's what Russia's goal here.
And what's even crazier is these natural resources that they're talking about, they're going to skyrocket. So, like, I'm not, like, it doesn't matter to me. It's not like I'm going to go rush to invest in coal or they talk about batteries later. You know, it's other materials other than coal, because batteries are the wave of the future. But for people who know about investing, well, this is you know, like I said, you never know what the future holds, but it seems to me like coal is gonna be costing a little more money coming soon, along with any material that goes into making high-powered batteries.
Once again, it's economics, and it's not even for the Russian state. Ultimately, it's going to be oligarchs in Russia who gain from this. But Putin is keen to keep them happy in order to make sure they stay aligned with him.
Now, Putin really wants as much resources as he can get from Ukraine, even if that means throwing millions of Russians in the battlefield and running up the Russian casualty numbers to over 1 million. This is exactly why, for last few months, as the US election and then Trump's inauguration day was closing up, the Russian casualty numbers every day were hitting a new high. For pretty much last 4 months, the last quarter of the year, Russia was experiencing more than 1,000 casualties every single day. Sometimes
That's so sad. And look, he says sometimes even 2,000.
Even reaching 2,000 casualties in just 24 hours. Now, there was another
That's
reason
why I told you that equals 365,000 people a year. Let's say instead of 1,000, let's say in the middle, 1,500. That would bring it up to 500,000 people gone in a year.
Putin was pushing so hard. Of course, he wanted as many resources as he can get, but on top of that, he thought once Trump is in power, Trump will give him some kind of peace deal that he can live with. Trump can negotiate some kind of peace that can save the Russian economy, and on top of that, let Putin keep all the minerals mines that he captured during his 3-year-long 3-day special military operation. But things aren't playing out exactly how he had hoped. Ever since
And don't think just because I'm talking about Putin right now that, you know, I like Trump. That's definitely not the case. You know, as you can see, I'm not fond of Trump, and I'm really not fond of Putin.
Since Trump has taken office, he has called Russia weak, their economy is close to collapse, and he has told Putin straight up, gave him an ultimatum that if he wants to save his economy, he needs to come to the negotiating table for a fair deal. Otherwise, Russia is going to get hit with even more sanctions, and Ukraine is going to get armed to the teeth. Now, that doesn't sound like someone who's about to do Putin a big favor, but that was nothing compared to Trump asking for rare metals. Because the thing that scares Putin is those rare metals are under the ground that Russia is currently controlling in Ukraine. And Ukraine is happy to give those mines and give those rare metals to Trump, because then it will be on us, on the US, to make sure Russia empties out Ukrainian controlled territory. That way we can get access to those mines, we can get access to those rare metals. Now, I did mention this is something China is worried about too, and we'll get to that later in the video. But main reason being is rare metals are extremely important in batteries, which are basically the future, right? And
Trump is no good neither. Right now, when he froze the government funds, he is tearing up the U.S. economy at the moment. People that had jobs for years, decades, even new hires, they're all getting slayed right now. The thing is with me is that Putin is sending off people to be unalived like nothing. What Putin's doing is some next level evil stuff. What Trump did to the government when he froze the funds, it was horrible. What he's trying to do, and I already posted in the last video I did, he wants to take the funds that he froze and kick it up to the rich so that he could cut their taxes. And it's the craziest stuff in the world because it's taken from the poor to give to the rich. And that's, you know, ASS backwards, in my opinion.
people have even called it the oil of the future. That's how important rare metals are. Right now, China has a monopoly on exporting rare metals. But if we get access to those rare metals that's sitting under Ukraine, maybe that will change and China will lose one of the only leverage it has over other countries. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's talk about this deal that Zelensky likely offered Trump. Now, many people don't know this, or maybe they forget, that Zelensky wasn't just a comedian and wasn't just an actor before he was a...
Why does it have to be like this? Why can't we just unite and help each other? Why does it have to be people snaking people over money? Like people don't. I remember when we was throwing up the peace sign, everybody was like, peace, peace. And people still do it to this day. When I say goodbye to somebody, I'm like, yo, peace, I'm out. All you see is people talk about money, fighting, drama, like whatever happened to helping out your fellow man. This is why I like Zelensky. He had his back against the wall. They were coming and he fought. I look at Zelensky like he's a real man. You know what I'm saying? That's some G'd up stuff.
President. He was a producer, he was a businessman, and he knows how to make deals, much like Trump. And this is something we talked about on a podcast months ago. We talked about how this is the kind of deal Trump will likely work out, and this is the kind of deal that Zelensky will be happy to offer.
Biden wasn't the type of president that Trump is. Trump wants fame. Biden didn't want no fame. Biden, you rarely even heard from Biden like that. He did what he had to do, and that was that, and Zelensky, he is winning a war. Luckily, he got help. And Elon Musk, like, you got $260 billion. How you want more? That's insane to have $260 billion and you still want to grow your wealth. And then Putin, like I said, man, I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Just sending people off to be unalived like that.
Party in this deal is Russia. So let's watch that podcast clip with Diane Francis.
What Zelensky and the others have realized, which other countries have to, is that, Trump is not a historian. He's not a diplomat. He's not a strategist. He's a business guy. So make me an offer. Give me a deal. Let's win-win. And so that's his approach, and that's the approach you have to make. So what Zelensky has done in his victory plan is not only ask for more weapons to pummel the heck out of Russia, which is actually it's on the ropes economically, but he also has highlighted the fact that, Ukraine is in Europe the wealthiest European country in natural resources, apart from Russia, which is mostly Asian, but still. And they have as many resources, according to some estimates, as Canada or Australia has. And people don't realize this. You think of it as an industrialized country, a innovative IT country, and certainly an agriculture.
All about money. Look at that. They are really all this stuff is happening because, people want to take what the next country has,
Cultural giant. But this place is full of everything. Fossil fuels, critical minerals, everything you want, and $26 trillion worth. And so what Zelensky's basically saying to Trump and to the Europeans to a certain extent, hey, get rid of this guy, help us get rid of this guy, and and help us rebuild the country, and we'll give you first rights to partner with us in all this wealth. And so it's a business proposition as much as
you see. But I'm not mad at Zelensky. If I have a place and it's being attacked, and somebody comes along and they're like, we could help you, we could help you survive, but you gotta help us. I mean, Zelensky is the one that did what he had to do, period. He was being attacked and he fought.
As much as anything else, it's not about, we're a democracy, you gotta save us, or these guys are bad. No, this is about making a deal. And that's something that Trump can certainly understand. Now, in the course of that, it's important to know, and I don't know many people, I think I'm the only one that's printed it, but there are a number of Ukrainian oligarchs before the war, because I was in Ukraine a lot before the war, who were working on behalf of the Chinese. And as proxies of the Chinese, they were snapping up all this wonderful farmland in Ukraine. And the former president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, in fact, surfaced as one of the biggest property landholders in the country. And I think he's a proxy for China because he made many visits to Beijing. So that's one thing. Another thing that Zelensky has, I think, said, there will be no Chinese ownership in Ukraine because they've helped the enemy. And that means that all these secret deals and hidden identities of ownership will have to become disclosed, and the Chinese will be kicked out, and they should be.
Another aspect is also in reaction to the U.S. sanctions on China. China banned rare metals from their country, which apparently they kind of have a monopoly with, so they won't be exporting those to U.S. And they are very important in batteries, which is, the timing is kind of not suspicious, I guess, interesting, since Trump coming into office, and he has, as you covered in your Substack, he has announced 10% potential tariffs on China. Can China really afford a trade war with U.S.?
Well, see, this is what's happening with the Trump as president.
All the people in America wanted was for you to fix the economy, for you to do everything that you promised to do that they were voting for. And you went on some whole other stuff.
It's about negotiations. It's about deals. I'm going to slap, he says to Canada, a 25% tariff on you. Okay? Because you have a big trade surplus with us, 100 billion a year, or whatever it is. And Canada's, the mouse that roars, and we have a very weak prime minister, and he says, oh, well, and we're thinking of putting export taxes on our oil shipments and our electricity shipments to the United States. So these are opening positions in a negotiation. People shouldn't take this seriously. It's not emotional.
But you got to remember, too, this is a man that froze the government funds so he could give tax breaks to his rich pal. For him to give his billionaire buddies tax breaks, he froze the government fund. And that's, like I said, that's why the disclaimers at the beginning of the video.
The trade surplus, they don't want it. They don't think it's necessary. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to reduce it. You're going to reduce it by either buying more American stuff or selling less of your stuff to them. And so it becomes a negotiation. And that is sort of what the Europeans are also stuck with. They've been told that they're going to get between 10 and 20% tariffs too. So one of the woman that Christine Lagarde, who runs the central bank in Europe, who's very smart, I've met her, very smart, and has tons of experience as a business person, a lawyer for businesses, and she lived in the States many years. She gets it. She knows the deal. She knows how it works. She's dealing with a real estate guy here from New York, a tough guy who trash talks, who scares you.
Yeah, see, look, and even she has to be careful. Like, people hear me sometimes go, and it's because you want to take a second and think before you speak. People who speak before they think, they get into trouble. She has to be careful what she says too. I'm pretty sure she lets a curse word fly here and there. You got to be careful. And I don't like backpedaling or being so cautious, but it is what it is. For people that do YouTube, you want to make sure that you conduct yourself some sort of class. Point of what I'm saying is that I would like to let loose sometime and curse out the guy that I know is robbing from the poor to give to the rich. But I can't. And that's all that I meant by that.
Threatens, but he just wants to make a deal at the end of the day. So she said her advice was, don't plunge yourself into a crisis, Europe. Listen to what he's saying. Don't tut it. He's saying what he's saying. He wants to put 10, 20% because we have a big surplus with the U.S. in trade. So here's what we have to do. We have to buy more American stuff. Let's buy all our weapons from America. And by the way, we need liquefied natural gas. Let's buy more from America. We'll get that surplus down to a net balance. Don't get all, silly and emotional and frightened and so on. Do something about it. Negotiate it. They'll be open.
Zelensky needs protection, and if he got to do business with over having protection and being able to be free in his own country, then so be it.
America. And by the way, we need, liquefied natural gas. Let's buy more from America. We'll get that surplus down to a net balance. Don't get all, silly and emotional and frightened and so on. Do something about it. Negotiate it. They'll be open to that. So that's really all that has to happen. Now with China, the issue of technology and critical minerals is a little different because it has to do with defense. It has to do with national security, with weapons making, with bombs and all that sort of thing. That is a different thing. It's not like buying, plush toys from China. This is stuff that's serious safety of the nation. So they're tougher on those things. But China has got their hands on a lot of critical minerals. They have some of themselves. They've got their hands on a lot of them around the world, but they don't belong to them. And the United States has critical minerals. Canada and Australia have critical minerals that aren't even being exploited. So those are the things that are going to happen. If they start to play around with access to these things, then they're going to get hit with something else, and then you have to negotiate your way out of it.
First, we have a comment from Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesperson. Russia to Trump, back off Ukraine's rare earth. The statement that he gave was, if we call things as they are, this is a proposal to buy help.
I love my country, so, anything that helps the U.S. in the right way, I'm all for it. But this man attacked the Ukraine to take the natural resources. So if Trump came along and said, you know what, we held you down and we want to do business, I wouldn't be mad about Zelensky and Trump doing business together. Remember, Zelensky was they made it where Zelensky had no choice.
In other words, to not give it unconditionally or for some other reason, but specifically to provide it on commercial basis. It would be better, of course, for assistance to not be provided at all, as that would contribute to the end of the conflict. I guess basically what he's trying to say, if we read between the lines, is it's fine if Russia is buying help. It's fine if Russia is giving $5 billion to North Korea for millions and millions.
That's what I mean, yeah. Well, why would people be mad if Trump and Zelensky do business when not only did Putin attack the Ukraine first out of nowhere just to try to get his hands on their finances, but he also bought soldiers from North Korea to try to hurt the Ukraine. So Zelensky and Trump did business. That's that wouldn't affect me in any way, shape, or form. I'm against war, but like I said, they came at the Ukraine.
Of artillery shells and ammunition and spears. That's perfectly fine if it's Russia who's the one buying help. But if Ukraine, a country that's getting invaded by Russia, looks for help any other place, then it's completely unfair. Then the whole world is upside down because countries are helping Ukraine destroy a Russian army, the second best army in the world. Basically, that's the statement he's trying to say. But we have another statement from Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia, the former prime minister, and current mouthpiece of Kremlin. Let's look at his statement. Trump explained how Kyiv could pay the US with Ukraine's rare earths. I guess he got one thing right, Ukraine's rare earth, not Russia's. But what about Europe? It will pay through the nose to piece the failed state of Ukraine.
That's right, Ukraine, not Russia's.
Ukraine back together from its scraps. Europeans, thank your leaders for this. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if my country had an inflation of 9.5%, unofficial inflation rate of up to 22%, I wouldn't want my leaders worrying about how other countries are spending their money. But I guess Russians don't care, or maybe Russians
I agree with you 100%.
don't have a voice. But this could be the reason why Russians aren't mad at their leaders, because Kremlin controls the state media. And here we have another segment from BBC reporter Steve Rosenberg, who reads the Russian newspaper, and they are talking about the price hikes in Russia, the inflation that's getting out of control. Potatoes are becoming unaffordable. Vodka is becoming unaffordable in Russia. Butter is getting locked up in supermarkets because there's a shortage. The prices are so high, the supermarkets have to protect butter like it's Rolex. Let's look at this segment.
The Russian press continues to talk openly about Russia's economic problems. Front page of today's Moskovsky Komsomolets, the headline, Price Fever. In 2025, inflation...
Yeah, that's what war does, man. That's crazy. It's always the small person that gets hurt the worst. Make peace so that the people could flourish again. These people are rich, whether in war or not in war, the actual people that run stuff. But it's us that gotta suffer when it's wartime. God bless the people, man. The people that are going through it over what's going on.
Promises to be a serious challenge for the country's economy and ordinary Russians. Everything around us keeps jumping in price. Vegetables, housing, utility bills, medicine, transport. Look at this chart in today's Argumenty Fakty. Over the last year, milk prices have jumped nearly 20%. The price of apples too. Cucumbers 22%, beetroot 32%, butter 35%, cabbages 42%, onions 46%, and the price of potatoes by more than 90%. This Russian MP calls for measures to limit the markup on goods, the difference between the shelf price and the manufacturer's price. The markup mustn't exceed 100%, but this economist says putting limits on price markup is a populist measure from politicians that could lead to supply shortages far greater than those that exist now.
I don't know, considering that Soviet Union collapsed, I would advise Putin to not follow the Soviet economic policy. Not because I want Putin to not fail, mainly because I don't want that many Russians to suffer because of a dumb decision Putin made.
You know, that's what I'm talking about. That's who I care about. The people that are suffering because of what's going on for from rich people being unfair.
They're already doing that after Putin's decision to invade Ukraine. But this is something we learned as juniors in high school here in Texas. Price caps lead to shortages. But Putin doesn't even need to come here for junior high school classes. He can just look at Argentina. Before Javier Milei was president, they had a rental price cap in the country, and the country was experiencing a housing shortage. They had the supply, but people weren't willing to put their houses on the market because the government set the price too low in hopes of basically keeping the rents low. But when you keep the rents artificially low by setting a price ceiling or a price cap, you just take away the supply. You don't give people incentive to increase the supply. As soon as Milei was elected president, in his first year, he took away the price cap and the supply got flooded. The market got flooded with supply. Everyone.
Yeah, supply and demand has got to be fair. You can't be so cheap that the person selling you the item doesn't make any money. That's not how a country that wants to flourish does business. You know, any person wants to look for a good deal, but you always want to know that the guy that you did business with made a profit margin.
Started putting their houses on rent that decreased the rent, in fact, and the shortage went away. Similar stuff is happening here in US, just in a little bit different situation. You know how rental prices across the Western world, not just in US, have been going up for the past decade. But here in Texas, especially in Austin, the government basically started giving out a lot of permits to build new housing. And this year, the prices actually came down. In some areas in Austin, the prices are down almost 9% in just 1 year. The people who are getting their renewals for their rental apartments, they're getting a lower price. And this is something I have actually never heard of it before in my life, that if you stay at the apartment, the price actually going down. But that's what happens when you let people build more. But anyways, coming back to Russia, the economic situation is so bad that the newspapers that are controlled by Kremlin are printing about it, and people on the state TV are talking about it. The situation is getting so out of hand that even the tight control that Putin has over Russian state TV, it's not enough to just keep this news on the DL. So let's watch the Russian state TV. Now, Russian state TV is in Russian, but I know a lot of you guys like to listen to these videos, so we'll have an AI dub over the Russian.
I mean, I couldn't understand anybody saying that they like Putin. That's just me keeping it 100. That's not even the full blast of what I think.
Language.
There is a war, and the economy plays a role. Why did Napoleon lose? The economy, economic potential. France's science and economy. That's what determines war, both past and future. Not everyone understands this, but the military knows it for sure. Absolutely for sure. Look at what he says. But this is precisely the scare tactic that they are pulling out. He wrote the following on social media. I'm not looking to hurt Russia. I love the Russian people and always had a very good relationship with President Putin. And this despite the radical left's Russia, 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 hoax. We must never forget that Russia helped us win the Second World War, losing almost 60 million lives in the process. All of that being said, I'm going to do Russia, whose economy is failing, and President Putin a very big favor. Settle now and stop this ridiculous war. It's only going to get worse if we don't make a deal. And soon I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the United States and various other participating countries. Let's get this war, which never would have started if I were president, over with. We can do it the easy way or the hard way. And the easy way is always better. It's time to make a deal. No more lives should be lost.
I try not to have hate in my heart. Y'all guys might hear me say I can't stand this person and this and that. But at the end of it all, time is you know, life is short. You don't want to spend any of your life unhappy, hating on people, even if they deserve to be hated on. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you get older, bro. The youngins got energy, you know what I'm saying? So they don't look at it like us. But when you get older, you're on some like what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? Let's get our shit together.